Let's discuss with Republican Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee. He serves on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. Speaker Johnson says that this series of bills is a better outcome than having to, in his words, eat that previously passed Senate foreign aid package. Just given the way that you voted on the rule today, I imagine that you disagree.
Yeah, I do. I felt like we've given Ukraine enough money. As you know, I haven't voted for any of their money, Boris, and thank you again for having me on. I don't like the way that the rule was cobbled together. We should have had individual votes for individual bills, such as Israel funding, Ukraine funding, and Taiwan funding. And, you know, there's all this rush to get this done. I'm not sure what the Indo-Pacific money, Taiwan, and that's going against China. I wasn't sure the urgency there. And again, you know, with the money that went to Ukraine, there was money in there for legal fees. There's basically a few million going to the World Bank. I wasn't sure what that was about, you know, and they blocked my amendment that would have prevented the president from forgiving the loans, because, you know, that was the beauty of this one, was that it was about we are going to give them the money and it was as a loan, and yet now the Uniparty has blocked my amendment to do just that it would be a loan. So, you know, I've got a lot of problems with a lot of it. It's hard to cover it all right here, but it's a pretty in-depth bill, and it's a whole lot of spending. We add $1 trillion to our debt every 100 days. You know, I'm a fiscal hawk on this type of thing, and where we're at $35 trillion now, and every 100 days another trillion. I would just like to see some accountability. And we're borrowing money to give to other countries. I just don't see the sense in that.
I do want to get into those numbers with you in a moment, but there's some urgency behind the effort to oust Speaker Johnson from his job. I'm wondering if you support that effort, where you stand in that question.
No, as you know, the previous ouster I did support. I thought we had grounds for that, and I thought it was justified. But I also knew 100% that we would put a Republican back in that seat. I don't have that those type of numbers on this one. As a matter of fact, as you know, we have several members that some out of New York, and they're in districts where Biden won by 15. I think one maybe even 16 points. So I'm pretty sure that we could lose a couple of votes there. And of course, we're down to one person. We have a day that there's people that are out, that are sick. Life happens, as you know, weddings, things like that, deaths in families, illnesses, and we're out. And then we will actually hand the gavel over to Hakeem Jeffries. And when we do that, I feel like this administration has gone so far hard to the left that is where their base is. Every other demographic, you've seen the polling numbers, they're actually diminishing, and I'm afraid that they will try to appease their hard left, and they will go through our Constitution like Grant through Richmond.
So you would be supportive of ousting Speaker Johnson. It's just that the math doesn't add up, and you're concerned that Hakeem Jeffries would wind up becoming Speaker.
No, I would not be at this point supportive of that. He's, you know, when we elected Mike Johnson, you know, he was against FISA. He was against unauthorized searches of Americans using the disguise of a investigation into foreigners. He was against funding Ukraine. He was for Israel. And but all those except Israel, he seems to have changed his position on. So, but I don't know that that's a cause for ouster. I think that we're going to have to. We need to just go out with him through the rest of this year into the election cycle, and let's just see what happens.
I promised you a question on the Ukraine funding, and you cited some of your concerns there, but I wanted to sort of paint an overarching picture of what this money looks like, because I've heard some folks say that they're opposed to just writing a blank check to Ukraine, and that's not exactly what's happening. There's $20 billion for the U.S. to replenish its own stockpile of weapons. There's $11 billion that would help American operations in the region, some $14 billion that would buy weapons for Ukraine, most of which are made here in the U.S., so the money would be spent here. And then that loan that you mentioned is roughly $10 billion. You were obviously upset that there's a provision in there that you wanted to make it so that the president wouldn't be able to just make that cancel the debt, essentially. But there is $26 million that goes to oversight, to accounting for all the money that's being spent in Ukraine, which is something that folks that have opposed this aid before might want to see. Is that not worth it in your eyes to keep Vladimir Putin in check without actually putting American troops at risk?
Well, we don't have any real clear path to victory, and of that money that you mentioned, the $23 million, I believe, that's going to go, $23 billion, excuse me, that's going to go to our war profiteers, what Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex. Is that, and it's really a replenishing. I don't know about a replenishing. It's just going to give them more money to operate on. So I don't buy all that. And why isn't all 60 billion of it alone? Why are we just giving this money away? And always remember, though, Boris, I know you're doing your job, but we are borrowing every cent of this money to give to Ukraine, every cent. So your great-grandchildren, because I don't think your grandchildren could ever pay it back, but maybe your great-grandchildren, when this bill comes due, are going to be paying for this. And yeah, I think, Boris, I think Russia is basically run by a thug, and that's all there is to it. You and I know that. He's a murdering thug. But again, their GDP is somewhere between Canada and France, and I don't see them as the world threat that everybody tries to make him out to be. And I also wonder, when China rolls on Taiwan, which we think they will under this weak presidency we have in this country, are all these people that are rattling the sabers now, are they going to be out saying, let's go to war with China? I mean, what's going to be the difference? So I hope we have this conversation again when they do that, because I would like to analyze what they're saying then as well.
Yeah, you raised some really significant points, Congressman. I think we do have to go, but I think generally some of the concern is that this money, even though it is borrowing against our future and adding to the debt, as you point out, actually saves money in the long term, and what could be a much broader conflict if Putin decides to get more aggressive and potentially encroach into a NATO country. Congressman Tim Burchett, always appreciate having you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Boris. It's always a pleasure, brother.
Of course. Take care, sir.